Hello and welcome to the Home Screen Podcast. This is episode 17. With me again is Ben.
How are we doing? You alright?
Good, thank you. It's been a few weeks since the last episode, but we're back again with our second gaming episode. Today we're going to be talking about Cyberpunk, is it 2077?
2077. How long have I been asking you to A, play this, and B, do a podcast?
Well, I'm glad I have, because it is sick. It's incredible.
Phenomenal. I've been sat in the corner of your room, hiding amongst your Lego, like, excuse me, sir.
When are you going
to play it? When are you going to finish it? And when are we going to do the podcast?
Well, I'm glad I have. So, yeah, we're going to start with spoiler-free, talking about the game, doing a bit of an overview, and then we're going to dive into spoilers, and then we're going to talk about the insanely good expansion. It's one and only DLC, Phantom Liberty. So for those of you that don't do much gaming or aren't too aware about what Cyberpunk is, it's a game. It is a game. It's not a board game, it's a video game.
I mean, I think one of straight away as well, even if you're not into video games, it got a lot of attention with its original launch as well, because it was, well, with the cast with Keanu on there as well, but
yeah.
The launch was just an unmitigated disaster, wasn't it?
It was so bad that it breached kind of the walls of gaming journalism and spilled into mainstream media.
Yeah.
So Cyberpunk 2077 is an RPG set in the not too far future, essentially a futuristic kind of dystopian society where people are kind of infused with cyberware. Everything's super futuristic. Everything's very interlinked with like the net. You have people that are like net runners, which are essentially hackers. Some people suffer with cyber psychosis, where they go too crazy because they've altered themselves too much with enhancements and things. It's an action RPG, so yeah, there's a lot of action set pieces and shooting and whatnot. There's also stealth approaches. The good thing about RPGs is obviously you can pick your own dialogue, so yeah, you can really tailor the game and the paths to whichever direction you want to take it in.
In terms of like your character, like how your character looks, like modification, obviously very big theme in the game anyway. But like the way that you look, your play style in terms of like your cyberware, and then your weapons as well, is like, it's such an expansive game just in terms of how you tackle things, how you approach it. You can go in guns blazing, you can go in, like you say, stealthy, and sort of like use things like hackable objects, or just go like, you know, pure power kind of thing. But,
and the good thing about that is that no two playthroughs are alike. Yeah, you can look at YouTube videos for builds and stuff. So there's perk trees, which are split into 5 main areas, I guess 6 with the DLC, which we'll talk about, with adds a 6th relic one. But there are 5 perk trees, and you can really spec into it however you want to. If you want to go all the way to get the top, like 4th tier perks, you kind of can't do that in all of them. You kind of really have to pick like 1 or 2 lanes.
Yeah, it's not one that you can sort of just mid-range absolutely everything, because you don't really get the most out of any of the perk trees until you like almost fully spec them out.
Yeah.
But so again, it's one of those where you've got to look at it. Like, I imagine it's not, I don't play many RPGs, but I imagine it's like the majority of RPGs where you're going to be really, really good at something and not particularly good at something else, but it will be tailored to suit your playstyle. Like, I think the first playthrough I did, I was just like absolutely bombed out on like power, so I was just like ridiculously strong, like max health points kind of thing, and then, you know, anything that required like intelligence, I was a meathead basically.
So my one and only playthrough, so I did mostly into like reflexes and cool. So that was kind of like katanas and bladed weapons, like throwing knives. Then I put a decent amount of stats into like body as well, so I could do like assault rifle stuff and just the general like, health item increases. And then late in the playthrough, I then dumped all my points into tech, which we'll talk about in a bit, but just so I could get to some of the higher level cyberware enhancement perks. So the game, it's kind of, where do you even start with the game?
It is, there's really, like you say, there's so much going on around the game itself as well, and sort of like this redemption story as well. But the original game, if you put aside the fact that it was nigh on unplayable to start with, just because it was just riddled with bugs and, you know, not great. You assume the role of a mercenary called V. You get hit with a cybernetic chip that has a ghost or an engram of Keanu Reeves' character, Johnny Silverhand, who is a rock star / terrorist, I guess?
Activist.
Violent
activist.
Politically infused individual with a guitar. And then essentially the two of you just have to work together to sort of solve this conundrum, whilst also, you know, blowing shit up and making some stacks.
The setting is a place called Night City, so it is like, compared to other game worlds like GTA and stuff, it's not the biggest, but it is quite expansive. But I think it's one of the most dense game world.
I think
very, very layered.
This is another thing that I love about this video game as well. It's not adapted from anything. It's an addition to Mike Pondsmith's tabletop RPG called Cyberpunk. There are a few versions of that. So all the characters are pulled from his lore. So it's like it takes place in that universe. It's not like some things are different. It's like it takes everything that you get from all of the books and in the original RPG and just spins another story that happens in 2077. So the lore is incredible. I've spent hours sort of just on a whim thought, oh, well, let's give this a bit of a Google, the history of some of the megacorps and like characters and things like that. It is ridiculously detailed, and it's one of those where if you don't pick up the right
data pads.
Data pads, sorry, like it just gives you like little nuggets, and I feel like with RPG games anyway, lore is spread about and you have to go digging to find bits. But because it is derived from an entire like RPG that ran for 20 years, it is insane. And Mike Pondsmith actually he served as like probably the equivalent of an executive producer, just to make sure everything was consistent. It is like stupidly detailed.
So detailed. And so for those that don't know, this is made by CD Projekt Red, famously known for doing all the Witcher games. Witcher 3, a lot of people consider to be one of, if not the best RPG of all time, with 2 of the best DLCs to boot.
Is that Wild Hunt?
Yes.
I haven't played that one.
I haven't played any of them, but its reputation precedes it, as they are just like equally very dense, super lore-heavy, well-designed world, well-designed cities. And I think they've taken a lot of what they learned from that into this, because the first teaser trailer for this came out in, I want to say, like 2014?
2013. E3 2013, yeah. So it was
just an ominous cinematic, which looked great for the time, to be fair. But then they kind of went radio silent on it, and there was no real news. And then it launched, was it 2019, 2020?
It launched in 2020, I think. But obviously it was supposed to be 2019, and they pushed it back like twice. There was so many like pushbacks and things. And then I think it was just...
And then it had a very, very rocky launch. Bugs, nigh unplayable on old, but I guess what is now old gen, so Xbox One, PlayStation 4.
That's an entirely... You could fill another podcast with this story, because it is...
There's entire video essays on just how
much they screwed the pooch on it, really.
But then over the years, this kind of redemption arc, the engoodening of the game, where they kept working on it. They did small patches, and then they did version 2.0.
There's a few, there was a few. I think they had a few little patches kind of thing, which sort of like brought it back to sort of maybe a playable state. But it was sort of, a lot of people had sort of like shrugged it off as, this isn't playable.
Yeah.
And then you had the Cyberpunk Edge Runners series on Netflix that dropped. That, again, really, really great show. That came with the Edge Runners update, which overhauled quite a few things. And I think that got people's attention back in on it.
Yeah.
And people decided to play it again with it being, a little bit more stable as a video game. People were like, actually, this is quite good. I hated the whole debate of like, oh, it was always good. And it's like, yeah, the game itself is brilliant, but like, if you can't play it, it's not good, is it? Then they had the announcement that they were doing one DLC, and then it'd be like end of life for it, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, it'd be on like maintenance mode, where they'd make sure the game doesn't break, but they're not gonna like
there's no
actively adding patches to it.
But alongside the Phantom Liberty drop, there was the update 2.0, which overhauled so many things, and I think that update was the game that CD Projekt Red wanted to make from the off.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, they overhauled so many things. I think I'd not played it in a while. I'd only done a couple of playthroughs. Came back to it, really excited for Phantom Liberty, and was just like, I can't remember how to play this game, and everything has changed.
Obviously, very different experience for me playing it, having 2.0 launched.
Completely polished.
So polished. Like, I could count on like one hand the amount of like bugs where I had to reload a save. There was some like slow quest progressions where I'd be like, wait for this person to call you, and I have to fast forward time if you use in-game days. But in terms of like looking at the state of how it launched in compared to when I picked it up 5-6 months ago, is just like, I'm so glad that it actually hit the polished state in the end. Because
a lot of people just write them off. What was that game that launched recently that literally lasts like 2 weeks and like, yeah, we're pulling it. It's not working.
Yeah.
It's like
well, that's a whole rabbit hole of Concord, of how it was just basically like put out to die, essentially. Like, gave it a $40 price tag, put it out.
There was a zombie one as well recently, wasn't there, too? Days Gone By or something, I can't remember. It's common. Yeah. It's quite common.
For a long time, I kind of was a bit on my high horse of playing Cyberpunk. I was like, why should I buy into the redemption arc? They released an unfinished game, and now because it's got a Netflix series and a patch, like apparently everyone's loving it, I don't want to give that a go. But then like Phantom Liberty launched, and then a lot of people that I follow online, like Skill Up and Kinda Funny and stuff, and IGN, saw them giving it glowing reviews. Then curiosity was piqued in it. Then you got really into it, and you were telling me how good it is. And then
I mean, I played it. I think just after it got removed from the store, and it sort of got. I think I got it on Amazon. I played it on my PS4. I got a PS4 version. It cost me about 15, 16 quid.
Okay.
Played it, but it was one of those where it's just sort of like, I just want to get through the main story, just see what the crack is, because obviously that sort of stuff interests me, just in terms of the video game itself. Quite a few bugs in it, but it was mainly just the game crashed on me a fair few times. So it was playable, but it wasn't like revisiting it now like we have just done over the past couple of hours. Didn't really have any interest in doing any of the side missions. It was literally just because I didn't really know how it worked. Do all the main missions, play through it, see what it was, but didn't really know at the time that gets you like pretty much the worst ending. When Edge Runners came out and I decided to give it another go, it was a bit more like the second, third playthrough was a little bit more extensive, sort of like going into like main side quests and side jobs and little gigs and stuff, which are there's some characters. It's some of the GTA missions, like you were saying GTA before. Some of the side missions in GTA are just batshit crazy, and it pulls from that a little bit as well. Like there's so much going on. It's such an interactive world to experience.
Yeah, and a lot of the main missions, obviously, a lot of them are very big, bombastic set pieces. Won't spoil too much, but there's a lot of like heavy influence of like neo-noir, detective stuff and spy stuff when we get to the DLC of Phantom Liberty. So a lot of the big missions, the main missions, are quite like large action set pieces with like emotional beats. But I actually found that a lot of the side missions were some of my favourite missions. There's a lot of like side characters, and with it being an RPG, you can romance, like male or female, depending on the character and your chosen sex in the game. Yeah, there's a lot of like cool stuff. And before I started playing it, one of my friends, Matt, did say like, oh, if you're going to start playing it, make sure you treat the side quests like they are main quests. Like the yellow exclamation mark quests. Make sure you treat them as essentially like main quests.
Yeah, you have like some that are outlined, and then you have some that are like filled in yellow. The filled in yellow ones are like your main quests. Like they progress the story, so to speak. And then you've got like I call them main side quests, which is sort of like to get the best experience out of the game, definitely play them. You could finish the game, like beat the game, so to speak, without doing them, but
it's worth it to do them.
100%, because like if you get far enough along these sort of like paths with these main side quests, it unlocks different endings for you. So like you're not really getting the most out of the game if you don't do those. I think that's what the first thing I said to you. I was sort of like, make sure you do the side quests.
Definitely.
Like, because they're not boring either. It's not like, oh, like I lost my cat, help me find my cat. They're like really, really like say like emotional. There's a lot of hard choices in them as well. Like with some RPGs, you find that it's like you start with small choices. It's like, oh, do you want red or blue? A little like Pokemon-esque, and then you get other ones. Nothing really affects it at all until right at the end, and you've maybe got like one big choice at the end, which sort of depends what ending you're getting.
But there's lots of consequential choices like peppered throughout the whole thing.
Tiny little choices that you don't really realise that affect until you reach a mission, like, maybe 6-7 hours later. And it's just, sometimes it can be the way that a character is with you, and then other times it's like, oh, you killed that character, so they're not there anymore, so it's somebody else, or like, again, not trying to get to spoiler territory, or just how complex the game is in terms of like paths and trees, and like what kind of an individual you are as well, which is insane. Like every choice, it's almost like pretty much every choice is going to impact the game in some way.
And it feels that like the more you play, the more you shape the version of V, like the main character that you play. Like my V chose like the female sex and was very like just trying to do the right thing. That was the mindset, and every decision I made, I kept sticking to that like ethos. I think that then it really leans more into like the RPG, the role-playing side of things, having a character style and sticking with it rather than just being like the good guy and then the next mission you're like an asshole. Like sticking with your choice, like if you want to be the renegade or you want to be the paragon, and choosing a lane, choosing a morality and sticking to it, I think leans into that role-playing aspect of it a lot.
I think it'd be pretty cool if they sort of like maybe like added like like you had with the Infamous games, you had like
the good.
If you do loads, if you do loads of good,
yeah,
people are like, oh, it's a superhero kind of thing. If you do loads of bad, everyone's like trying to avoid you. I don't know how complex that'd be to code because I'm not a coder or a developer. Or anything,
I mean, stuff like that'd
be pretty cool.
Stuff like that's in Red Dead Redemption 2. Something happens in the game.
Notoriety, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and it's your morality, where it's like the bar on the bottom either ranges from white to really dark red. And if you could go into a town and shoot at the whole place, it would really steep down to the red. Or you can like...
So the next town you hit, they're like, oh, we've heard about this dude.
Yeah, like
everybody hide.
People avoid you, the police will be more on you. people will just be like more nasty to you. You'll get the worst endings of the game. Or if you actually like are a good citizen and run errands and help people and stuff, then it actually boosts it.
Yeah.
There are ways you can exploit it. You can like be an absolute terrorist and then just like load into a town, tip your hat and say good morning to 10 people and redo it. So and then farm it back up to being good. So it does gamify it a bit, but yeah, systems like that are quite good as well.
You just imagine a conversation there between a couple of NPCs.
Honestly.
I only shot up an entire town. Yeah, but he went over to the next town, he was like, milady, to like 40 people.
Morning. What a nice guy.
To like 40 people, and you're like, it's almost like, this can't be the guy that mercilessly shot like the men and the women and children too.
So yeah, I think for the meantime, we're going to park the discussion about the main game there. It's really good. We love it. And we're going to dive into spoilers in a little bit. But before we do that, we need to talk about Phantom Liberty. Phantom Liberty is Cyberpunk's one and only DLC, and it is incredible. One of the best DLCs I've played pretty much ever. This year I've played 3 insanely good DLCs with Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree, Destiny 2 Final Shape, and now Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty.
I think it's my favourite DLC ever.
I think it's one of the most cinematic DLCs and one of the most
100%.
Emotionally gut-punching DLCs I've ever played.
I agree with that also, yeah. It's like the meme from Storks, I agree. I've got no notes.
No notes. It's bloody fantastic. It's so cool. This one really leans into the spy espionage.
So much so, it has its own Bond theme.
Yes, it does.
The soundtrack for the main game, and then also Phantom Liberty, I can't remember the fella that does it. And then they also have a guy who does a lot of the music as well. Like it's on a couple of the songs. He's also done some of the songs for the Netflix series.
Marcin Pribliowicz.
There you go, that fella. Incredible score to the point where I've ordered it on vinyl. I always talk about vinyls, but yeah, I've ordered that on. That's a record.
So cool.
Incredible.
One of the big ticket items with this that a lot of people will, I guess, recognise it for is that Idris Elba plays, I guess, your main supporting cast. He plays Solomon Reed, who is kind of your secret agent confidant. The inciting incident of this DLC is you're called to Dogtown, a new walled-off district of Night City, and then you get contacted by someone called Songbird, is their call sign. And after chatting to them, who said they can offer you some help with the relic in your head of Johnny Silverhand, you're called into the city when Air Force One is shot down, including the President Myers, who's on board. Then begins the whole tale of spy espionage, of who to trust, who not to trust, trying to find more colleagues of the NUSA, the New United States of America, working with Myers, Reed, Songbird, and Alex. Can't really say too much more about spoilers, but yeah, what did you think of Phantom Liberty? I know you said it's one of the best DLCs.
Yeah, for me, hands down, it is the best. I will die on that hill, whether or not it's lonely or not. I think in terms of the characters in this entire game are insane, whether they be like supporting characters or like main characters. It's just like compounded in Phantom Liberty. You think you get a lot of, in this sense, A-list actors sort of coming into sort of the video game space now and providing motion capture and voice talents. I reckon they just sat around the table and thought, how the hell do we top Keanu Reeves? Hang on a minute, Idris Elba. At this point, I'd be like ringing up MGM and being like, new James Bond, Idris. You see him in Cyberpunk, phenomenal.
One guy in the corner of the room when they were casting, like, I like watching The Wire. We got it.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Say that again. But I feel like with just the playthrough of Phantom Liberty, it takes place before the main ending of the game. The entire storyline is basically sort of like say you play it as you want, and it's about sort of how you want to play it. Is it purely self-preservation, I'm in it for me, or are you like trying to be like, a quote-unquote good guy and try and help people as much as you can? It's that, but like the stakes are raised so much because it's like, President of the new United States, and like you say, this whole element of who do you trust? Are people just bluffing you, or like like who's being genuine and who's just using you, kind of thing, which is compounded in this DLC, I think, massive, which makes it all that better to play.
Yeah. 100%. It's got a lot of intrigue to it, and I think that I was actually more compelled to go mission to mission in Phantom Liberty. It was more of a page turner to me than the base game was. Like the main missions are cool, but there's
dip out with the main.
There's a lot of like, also with me trying to do all the side missions as well. It was a lot of do this mission, wait 2 days for Takemura to call you. Okay, I'll go and do 5 side missions and then come back to it and scratch my head. Oh yeah, what was I actually doing again? Which is just my playstyle. Whereas Phantom Liberty, I was just trying to like mainline, not to rush through it, just because I was more genuinely invested in the main story of Phantom Liberty. Yeah. I think it is probably the stronger story than the actual main game. I think
it's like I say, if you play it sort of like almost back to back to back.
Yeah.
It's a lot shorter, obviously, because it's a DLC. But like you say, it has that pull factor where you're like, oh my god, I need to know what happens next. Like Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, so it's,
you just want to get through it, don't you?
It's shorter, but it is kind of like a 1.5 of the game. Like it leans so far towards being almost like sequel-esque, but it's nice how it's still an offshoot and it's still set within the game world. It just accomplishes so much so well. Like Dogtown as a location, mentioned earlier about how Night City is such a dense location. This is like that doubled and tripled. Like it's a smaller area, but the amount of like levels and layers to it, especially when you're doing all like the gigs for Mr. Hands, who's a fixer, like interiors that you wouldn't even know were there. Like when you look at it on the map, you just think, oh, it's essentially one street with some high rises around it, and then the stadium and the is it Diamond Hearts Club, like where
Diamond Hearts Club, I think, is where Hands is set.
Where Hands is
set. You mean the Black Sapphire?
Yeah, but like so there are like large play spaces around, but even like bits you can access in free roam, there's like a lot of depth to the
and they're so like all the districts as well are so very different. Like there's a whole sort of areas are different, and obviously like normally it's like, oh, you know, each area is different because you get different types of enemies. You know, like you're like 6th Street in one area, and then the Valentinos in another. And this is headed up by like there's no police, it's Barghest, and they're also sort of take up the
like private
enforcement and also sort of the gangs. But just how different it is to play parts of the game in different areas. Like I find the engagements like in Dogtown so different, and you sort of have to tweak your playstyle a little bit compared to sort of playing on the streets of Night City, where it's a little bit more open. You run, I was
going to say it feels very boxed in.
Yes.
Like in Night City, you're in a fight with some gangs or police or something, you can literally just get in your car and hightail away. Whereas in Dogtown, you can't do that because of like you can like
everything's so compact.
You can
so
activate
much more difficult.
Like you can activate a behavioral implant. You can disappear off the radar, but you do feel like there's less places to run. You kind of have to take fights head on, which I think was a cool play style.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so cool.
TLDR, the best DLC you will ever play.
It's so good. I mean, it's hard for me to rank. Like at the end of the year, I always like to rank the movies, TV shows, and games that I've watched and played.
This is a plot twist, isn't it? Because it's the best game you've played, and it's also the best film you've watched because it is that cinematic.
Well, it's like the writing in this is phenomenal. So much so that at the Game Awards last year, I think it got 4 nominations. I think it got like best writing, best performance. I want to say best soundtrack and something else. I forget what the last one is.
It won like was it like longevity? The longevity award. It won like.
I think it might have been like the Game Awards before that. Not to be misquoted. Like it got like best ongoing or something because of the 2.0 patch. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like so rightfully deserved the nominations, especially for best writing and best performance.
Like we were saying before, it's great to sort of see it getting the recognition it deserves, because as a concept and as a story to sort of drop into an experience, phenomenal.
So sick.
And it was just such a shame that it was plagued with all these problems to start with, and my heart bleeds for the guys at CD Projekt Red that were like working on it all, and then it just sort of coming out a little bit like undeserving hate. To sort of see it now on that pedestal where it rightfully belongs is so satisfying.
I'm so glad that I actually got around to playing it in the end, and it is so good.
Only took me how long? How long did I beg you to sit and play this game? You're like, I can't. I'm playing Destiny at the moment. I can't.
Well,
I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You did all the Uncharted games as well. Like I don't know how recent that was, and then you did Spider-Man too. So you've had a bit of a backlog of games that I've recommended to you, and
this was one of them that I was like, I'll get around to it. But to be fair, with
fair play, you've got through the vast majority of them this year, haven't you?
With Phantom Liberty coming out like the end of last year, it was like October last year. But before that came out, that was the turning point. When I heard about 2.0, when I heard about Phantom Liberty, and I saw the reviews, I was like, oh, hang on, this actually might be worth checking out. If it comes on sale sometime, I'll get it. And then having actually played it, I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
So that is where we're going to end the spoiler-free discussions. Thanks for listening if this is where you want to turn off, because we're going to be talking about endings, side missions, basically just spoiling the game. So as much as I'd like for you to keep listening to the podcast, do yourself a favour and play the game, because it is phenomenal. But if you want to keep listening, we're going to just delve into all the spoilers. Starting with the base game and the endings. What do you think of the endings? How many have you experienced? How did you approach the end game?
I've done that many playthroughs, so you've seen my logged time on that on that save.
This man lives in Night City.
Yeah. I've done all but one.
Okay.
I've done the endings that many times. I've done all but one. So there's the I think the first time I played it again, it was sort of just like just do the main mission. I got the worst ending, which was the Where Is My Mind, which is basically you side with Arasaka.
Yeah.
Arasaka are like, we'll get the relic out of your head, you'll be all good, but you got to help us with an Arasaka coup, which basically stands against everything that Johnny's telling you to do in the game. Obviously,
never trust the Arasakas.
Which just don't trust the corpse because they're all scumbags.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like, well, I thought you'd learnt a little bit, sort of knocking about with me, and you don't, and you sort of get stiffed really.
Yeah.
Essentially, like nothing changes. Yorinobu, who gets offed by his son, Saburo. He gets offed by his son, Yorinobu, ends up in his son body using the same technology that they sort of like, that's patented with, not patented, that they have with...
The relic.
Yeah. With Johnny. So he's at the top of Arasaka again. Arasaka's stronger than ever, and you're just left on a space station, which is like, we said we could save you, we can't. Sorry, you can either go to Mikoshi and, you become an engram, and we definitely promise, wink wink, that you'll be human again soon, you'll be in a body again soon, or you just go back to Earth, go back to Night City, and you've got like
6 months,
a month, 3 months left to live, which is when I was playing it, I finished it and I was like, the thing I actually said like out loud, I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, this is just a terrible ending. And then I was like, oh, I did a bit of a Google, there's more endings. Depending on side quests, this the main side quest, you can do a nomad ending.
So that's the one that I got. So,
talk us through that one.
So my playthrough, I went all in on the nomads. That was like, as soon as I got the Pan Am quest line, I treated that as my main quests for like a good 5-10 hours. Like I was like all in on the Aldecados. So that was the ending that I went with. So essentially theirs is you turn down Hanako and her kind of coup. You call Pan Am when you're on the rooftop. She comes and picks you up. You then enlist the help of like the whole nomad tribe of the Aldecados. Saul, Pan Am, you, Mitch, storm a abandoned tunnel. You then drill until you're underneath the demolished Arasaka Tower, and then infiltrate and get to Mikoshi from there. I was really happy with that, and then once you're inside Mikoshi and you chat to Alt, you can either give Johnny your body and then your consciousness fades into cyberspace forever, or you keep your body and Johnny is taken away with Alt. I went with giving Johnny the body, and I essentially view this as kind of like the happy ending. Now having looked through the guide of the endings and chatted with you and Googled and YouTubed, I think that
it's the New Dawn phase, right?
For me, yes. I think that's kind of like my favourite ending. It seems like what I would want to be the canon ending of kind of like, I know there's like the where you kind of like a Night City legend, but I think that bittersweet of like sticking with because I played as a nomad rather than like a corp or anything. So sticking with my path, calling on their help, going in and then giving Johnny the body felt like, for me,
satisfying.
And my play style, that is the canon ending. That is that's the way I would have wanted it to end.
That's how I'd have played it, kind of thing. That's what I would do in that situation, sort of. It's a good one to experience. After my proper, the initial playthrough, I think the first one that I got when I got the vast majority of the endings was Rogue's Path, which is basically you give Johnny the body, and Johnny, Rogue, and Wayland storm Arasaka Tower to get to Mikoshi. The crux of it is basically the same across most endings. It's basically, we need to get to Arasaka, whether you take Hanako's help or like any of the allies that you've built up over the game. You get to Mikoshi, and then Alt's like, actually, one other little fine print that we didn't read. The relic's been in your head far too long for it now to be registered as your body. So if you can separate them, but the body now only accepts Johnny.
Yeah.
So you can put Johnny in there and Johnny's fine. You can put V in there and Johnny tunnels off into cyberspace with Alt. V still dying.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, when I did the first proper playthrough, a bit of a gut punch. I was like, oh shit.
I thought that, but I could tell that there was going to be no 100% happy ending. That one of us wasn't going to make it. I didn't think it'd be a clean split of separating us both. And
depending on who you like as a character and who you root for as well, even past you as the character of V, it impacts the ending so much. There is a couple of other ones like a suicide ending and a suicide run ending. So the suicide ending is basically just like outright the actual worst. It's basically just like, we put it auto rest, we'll take the easy way out.
Oh, just don't do that.
Because you get the video message at the end and they're all just sort of like,
why do you do this?
I can't believe you did this.
Idiot, you picked the wrong ending.
And then you've got the Suicide Run, which is the only ending that I haven't played myself. I've seen it, but the only one I haven't played myself, which is...
That sounds a lot of fun. I want to try that.
It's one of those where like the criteria is so specific. I've found now, because I've replayed it like that many times, like from scratch, rather than pulling previous saves. I don't think I could do it again this soon.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna like next time it'll just be a case. The last playthrough was for that basically. It's like I want to get the Suicide Run in. Stop calling it that. Don't fear the Reaper in. It's called, which is basically you initially think we'll go with Rogue. You leave it like 5-10 minutes, and then he's like, actually, I've got a really stupid idea, and you're like, okay, Johnny, what's going on? And he's like, we could just do it, which is basically badass as hell. You just like walk through the front door, like through the lobby of Arasaka Tower, and just like basically what Johnny does the first time round, like previously in the story.
Just storm the castle.
Just storm the castle from the bottom. The only issue is with that is there's no checkpoints there.
Yeah.
If you die, it's like everyone's max spec as well, so you've got to be like level 60. You know, decent gear, decent cyberware.
But even on like normal difficulty, will it not still be a breeze?
It's insanely difficult. Hard? It is like people saying like it's stupid. I mean, a seasoned gamer could probably like get the way through it. You know, depending on your playstyles and stuff. But if you die there, that's it. Game. You know, there's no chance to redo it unless you like actually reload a save. It just plays out like the Suicide ending, where everyone's like, why didn't you ask for help? Like, what the hell? Like, you know, everyone's like really upset with you because you've just gone off and done your own thing kind of thing. But if you beat it, you get the Path of Glory, which is similar to the way the Rogue's ending works as well. So they're sort of tied together, which is like, you're a Knights at your legend, provided you keep the body, and Johnny goes off into cyberspace. You keep your body, you're a Knights at your legend, and, you know, you're sort of plagued with this, I'm going to die at some point kind of thing. So that plagues your romance option. They're sort of like, I'm going to move kind of thing. And then you do a mission for Mr. Blue Eyes, who is a compelling character, like very mysterious. I think he'll play into the sequel when the sequel eventually comes out, which is, you see him occasionally. There's like a side mission you do with like the Paralyses. They're like politicians. And I don't think you've done that one yet.
I have, I did.
Oh yeah, where you find out that they're being like watched and their memories are being altered and stuff. And then
actually, unless I'm missing a part.
There's a second one. There's one that you do with River.
So I did one with River.
Yeah,
and then I did the second one where you find out they're being watched by their hired security.
Yeah.
And then is there one after that? Or is
it's like a small one. It's basically like his wife, Elizabeth.
Yes.
She basically just like really incognito in like a coffee bar or something. She's like, you can't tell him because she's sort of in on it.
Yeah.
It's like you can't tell him because it'll like it'll mess it up.
Okay.
It's like we're close to winning the election. It's just like you just gotta like let this one go. Right. And it's a case of like, do you tell him and sort of like, I'm going to tell the truth,
trip him up,
or do you just sort of be like, yeah, this is too much for me kind of thing. But when you sit and meet him, it's literally across from Embers as well. When you sit and meet him, in the distance, Mr. Blue Eyes is there.
Oh, right.
So he's at the end, and then as well, like one of the Phantom Liberty endings where you're storming through the airport.
Spoilers! No, it's fine.
We're in spoiler territory now. But he's also on one of the observation decks. You can see him.
Okay, interesting.
And there's like little things as well. Like his eyes are always blue, and like you'll notice like when they're communicating with people, the optics go orange, and I think blue is like proxy.
Blue is like when like people are transferring you funds, or when they're like sending you data.
It's like data stream, I think. Yeah. So it's almost like proxy. I don't know if you've ever watched like Elite: A Battle Angel.
No, but I think I'm aware.
Yeah, there's like scenes in that where what the guy who plays Blade.
Mahershala Ali.
There you go, that guy. He plays a guy called Vector, and he's a pawn basically. He's getting controlled by this guy called Nova.
Yeah.
But his eyes go blue, so you know that like obviously other than his voice and his mannerisms changing.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing to that, I think.
Okay.
So I think that's going to play quite heavily into the sequel that they're developing. Like I hope it does as well because it's like it's a mystery. I don't really think anyone knows. Anything about it. But yeah, that ending, you end up in space and you're trying to like do a big heist in space, but.
That's cool.
It's like probably the coolest ending.
Before we move to Phantom Liberty, just wanted to say, of the base game, there's so many like cool like side quests as well. Is there any like stood out to you? Like for me, there's a really long and kind of disturbing one with River.
River's
called The Hunt, where you essentially
they're your four main side quests basically. Sort of almost like I think they pretty much are your romance options. There's like other little ones, like shorter ones, but your four main long ones are.
There's like River, Rogue, Judy, and Panam.
Kerry as well. You didn't do any of Kerry's.
No, because I missed the whole Rogue romancing.
Yeah,
but,
I mean Rogue is there sort of like briefly, but that's more for Johnny.
Yeah,
and then it leads into Kerry's sort of like side quest. Rule.
Yeah, which I'm kind of sad that I missed that chunk, but I mean I still feel like I experienced a hell of a lot of it. But,
I missed it the first couple of playthroughs as well.
So River has a side quest called The Hunt, which is really like very true detective, really kind of disturbing about how
bit McConaughey, isn't it?
Very, about how he his nephew has fallen like prey to like a online grooming thing and ends up being abducted and being held hostage in this farm, and then you basically having to do some like pretty cool like detective stuff like in the computer and looking around the apartment and stuff, and then actually like getting there and rescuing them.
That's probably where, you know, the feature in the game where you can like use like BDs to like scroll through like memories and find bits out. It
really worked there.
It really worked there because it is very sort of detective.
Because you're actually looking for clues. Like it works with like Evelyn and stuff, but this was like spot on. And I kind of wish I did it a bit sooner, but I did that essentially, got the main game to the point of no return with Nocturne, went and did all of Phantom Liberty, then went back and mopped up all the side quests. And this was the last this was the last thing I did before I did Nocturne. And was just like blown away with it. I thought, just a quick like 15-20 minutes with River, see what he wants, and then it ended up being like an hour and a half multi-step quest.
How did that end for you? Did you save it or?
Yeah, saved them.
Yeah. I think what's really cool about that as well, like I think some of the clues in like the scrolls and stuff, the BD scrolls.
Yeah.
Some of them are a little bit harder to find, and if you don't find them, like I think there's like a version of it where you're not given like the actual farm that they're at. You're given 2, and if you go to the wrong one, or like you go there and then leave River and like don't come back until afterwards,
it's a bad ending.
Yeah, he's dead. And then obviously there's also one where like you survive but you go to the wrong farm, and then Randy. Randy's like they don't save him in time, and then that completely changes your dynamic with River as well. It's like the little epilogue mission where you like play laser tag with like his other kids.
Yeah.
And like have dinner, and then he's like, I like you. And you're like, get away from me. Well, if you're me, you're like, get away from me.
I'm taken, okay? I've romanced Judy, leave me alone.
Which brings us nicely into Judy's...
lovely
Oh
missions.
my God, it was probably like one of my favourite missions.
The underwater one?
Just leading up to that, I think the whole thing, because it's it starts out with sort of off the back of the heist, the end of Act 1, where the heist which sort of like puts into play Johnny and the relic in your head, and you don't have long, so that's how you sort of meet Judy, and then it's sort of looking after Evelyn, like rescuing Evelyn, which is a main storyline, but then sort of like looking after Judy after she disappears.
Because she kind of spirals a bit after losing Evelyn, and then goes on the revenge path. Is it called Clouds?
Clouds is like the club, and she's not getting any help from like she's part of the Mox, the gang, the Mox, and they're not willing to help initially. It's sort of like I've got to do it myself because I can't. People take advantage of they're called dolls basically, but you can't have more people be exploited like this, like Evelyn was. So I think it sort of sets her on that path, and it's sort of like I was all the way in with it. I was like, let's tear the shit down.
Let's do it.
But then as well, like the ending to that is, I think everyone, there's multiple endings to each one. You either get a good or a bad ending with them. I think Judy's was the hardest for me to decipher of like what is the right call here, because you can I can't remember her name. There's another lass that's sort of like
the one that like kills the execs.
Yeah. So you either basically jump into bed with the Tiger Claws who run Clouds and you piss Judy off, or you let her run it and then refuse the fact that she like wants to pay you off. Yeah. And Judy's like, I suppose it's for the best. Or you take the money and then Judy's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Or you just like off everyone and you just back Judy all the way, and then it's like it's probably not the best ending for the club, and
I think that's what I did. I think it's
the best ending for her, and she's like, thank you, and then she takes you diving.
Off the tigers, then off to the other woman, and then she's like, oh, what the hell? There's a lot of process, and then it was fine.
Yeah. I think I did the mid range where I allowed her to remain as manager, and Judy's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And then it's like, yeah, I didn't take payment for it, but like, trust me, this is like the best thing. And she's like, I need a bit of time.
Yeah.
And then she's like, on a second thought, actually, I think you were right, kind of thing. And then you get that really, really nice Mission Pyramid song, which is where you like do the diving and the scroll, which is backed by, I think it's called Bells of Laguna Bend. I think it's where she used to live. It
is before it got flooded.
Yeah. Which is that song in that soundtrack is just it's phenomenal. Sounds so good.
Sounds stunning, and that's the romantic like peak.
I think personally that's the best romance option there.
And it was lovely as well. Mission. I just wish I don't know, the water was like cleaner. I wish I could have just enjoyed it more, but it's like, of course it's dingy and like polluted waters. It was just so murky.
That's what happens when you dump in the lake, guys. Pollution is bad.
Like the Simpsons movie. You guys, the pollution's literally dissolving the stage right now. Play another song.
It's the song where they clean up the lake and then they make like the barrier. Complete segue. Cletus, try to dump something in the lake, and he's like, I can, I simply can. And then Fat Tony rocks up.
Fine, we will dispose of our yard trimmings elsewhere.
Chief, I think there was a dead body in there. So did I. Then he said yard trimmings. Get on and listen, Lou. Sorry.
We just put this as the social media clip, just completely out of context.
It's not Cyberpunk, it's the Simpsons movie.
You've been pranked. It's actually a Simpsons movie review. Let us pivot to talk spoilers about Phantom Liberty. This was one of the most emotional... this is the most emotional...
part of the game, I think.
Yeah, most emotional part of the game.
Very emotionally charged, and it's done well through the characters, like the writing, and then also as well some of the positions you put in. It's absolutely mental.
So heavy. So like the crux of it is like back when you're in like underneath the stadium with Hansen. Do you betray Somi or do you betray Reed? My playthrough, I betrayed Somi because at the time with her taking over the Chimera, I was like, how unpredictable and how glitchy and corrupted is she? And then through the mission then...
You realise you messed up.
I realised I messed up. And then you see her backstory. But I actually think that if I could go back and do it again, I would choose that again. I want to experience the other side.
Having done all four.
But I want to experience the other side just to say I've done it. So she gets the happy ending. But yeah, it ends up with a really like cool, freaky alien isolation sequence. And then you end up either mercy killing her or sparing her. Sparing her is not what you want to do. I ended up mercy killing her, which then Reed is kind of at a loss. Myers is pissed at you, but at least that you actually give her some release. And then it's not the end of the world because like Reed does console with you and says he understands your position and that you did the right thing, and then he does leave you a video message in the post-creds of the main game. So
definitely, like we said before, it's sort of like depending on who you back, just even in the main game, what characters you root for, who you like, who you back. The side that you took, sort of like in between, sort of who to side with, because there's so much leading up to it as well. You'll have extracts you'll have like sections where you're just with Reed, and Reed's like you get like little niggles of what's gone on previously. Like Reed is loyal to a fault to the FIA even after he was like 7 years prior, but betrayed, and and Myers makes Somi pull the trigger. So there's sort of like very complex relationships. Like like when you first meet Alex is like, you sold us out to Arasaka, and it's like, no, that was my cover. Like, actually, Arasaka shot me, and I was just left for dead. And then, I think that's what got me, where I'm just sort of like, where you were like, not that you felt sorry for him, but you were sort of like siding with Reed more. For me, it was like, Somi's the one that promised me the cure, inverted commas, and also as well, as much as I like Reed and like I love Idris Elba, like the dude was deluded. I'm like, you're blinded by duty, and it's like, you've already been shot. I've been shot, stabbed, like absolutely everything. So for me, it was the other end.
Yeah.
And I find it crazy as well because is it Something Broken? That mission is probably one of the best missions in the entire game. And if you pick the other ending and just think, I'm doing a one and done, that's one playthrough, you don't experience that mission.
Oh yeah.
I think you get a lot more sort of backstory between Songbird as a character, like like her earlier days, where unless you'd go and do what I do and deep dive bloody YouTube videos and video essays and what you don't really get that. So it's a lot more deep on sort of like Somi's relationship with Myers and Reed and the FIA and sort of like her career.
And how she was like over time more and more manipulated and pushed.
Yeah. Whereas the other
literally
one,
pushed beyond the black.
Yeah. Because I think she's only ever really put in that situation because of Myers. So like where you were like, oh, she's taken over the Chimera, and it's like it's weird. It's sort of like, I think it's just, it takes a strain. On her, and I think that's where like by the end of the game you sort of time's up sort of thing. But the other side of that, the Killing Moon mission, that's the first time I played.
Oh, I really want to go and play it.
That is just insane. Where you basically you decide to betray Reed and Alex and just run away with Songbird, which is, I think there's a lot of changes because on with your ending, you have the whole Hansen boss fight, and then you have the boss fight with Max Tack, and then obviously you go into the Cyberpunk facility and you do the whole alien isolation thing, which by the way was like probably one of the most terrifying games. I played that in like, it wasn't even in my house, I was staying elsewhere at the time. It was like midnight and I was just sick of the jump scares to the point where I think right near the end, didn't realise that you had to hide from the robot. I'm just running straight for the room, pulling it open. It stopped being terrifying and just started being annoying. It goes like the 13th time and I couldn't get past it. And I'm like, what do you want me to do?
What do you want?
I'm just stood in the middle of the room. Like, I just need to work this out. I think I had to grab a walkthrough. But anyway, the other side, which is just, it very much pens Myers anyway. I think is a bit of a knob, but it outright puts Reed in this antagonist category.
Okay.
Because you sort of, you dip out, you fight your way out of the stadium in Dogtown. You stick Somi in a taxi or a car, or whatever, and she's like, "I'll call you, it's fine." And I thought, "Oh, that's it, that's the end. She's just not going to call me." And then it's like, "You've been stiffed." You meet her like outside. She's in a van. She's like not in a good way at all.
Yeah.
And then it's like, "Drive me to Night City Airport.
Take me to the moon."
Yep. And then it's like, stick me on a plane to the moon, and we'll be all good. I'll take the neural matrix to the moon. And I think as well, it's heavily implied, if not confirmed, that it's Mr. Blue Eyes or the people behind Mr. Blue Eyes that's who she's going to meet on the moon, on one of the lunar colonies. So there's a really cool thing where you're sort of like trying to stealthily get through the airport.
Yeah.
Like you go through security and stuff, and there's multiple ways you can do it. You can like get some uniform, which allows you into like secret areas. You can like stealth it and like hack like vents and work your way around. And then you got to get Somi up there as well, which is like starts on the roof, and then you get like NUSA agents, and then Reed and Myers are like on the roof, and you're like crawling through vents, and there's little bits where you can sort of spot it. And Reed's like,
that sounds so cool.
It is so cool, and it's one of those you're almost like scared for her and yourself as well in a completely different way than it is in the other one. You get through it. There's this epic set piece where you're getting basically the full might of the NUSA just like thrown at you, and you're just pouring them off. And then you get to the moon, and she drops the absolute bombshell that the neural matrix only works once, and it's a case of I go to the moon, I use it, and then that's it. And it's like, I'm really sorry, but like at this point she's like tired, deluded as hell, and it's it's just one of those where like, how the hell is she even coherent enough to say this? And then you have that little, I showed you before, the little
standoff with Reed.
Well, not even that. Before that, the thing with Johnny, and Johnny's like, well, you can give Reed a call on the holo and sell her out, and then that neural matrix is all yours, or you can make good on your promise. And I think for me, it was like by that point, or probably before that point, I was all in on Songbird. I was like, she stiffed me, but it's one of those. It's like, you don't hate the player, hate the game.
Especially when you see how weak she is in those final bits, where you're actually carrying her.
It was again another one where it's like bittersweet, and having to take on Reed, and you spend so much time with Reed in the game, and he's sort of like, I say, relatively nice, pretty like sound geezer, go for a bit with him, and then it's just a case of like, you either call him outright, walk to the platform, and give him Songbird, and he's like, cool, FAA, I'll help you, nice one. And then you got the other one where you're like, you're pissed off at Songbird. I think like you actually kick, and you're like, go on, get up, we gotta go. And then you still have the option of either giving her to Reed or offing Reed and sticking her on the shuttle. Or you've got like, I think I went completely compassionate because I'm like, I can't really be mad at her. Like, but I think that's what the first time I did that, and then obviously like the conversation with Johnny, and you're watching the rocket go off to the moon. And then it comes in with
he stumps for the first time.
I was going to say, I think that, like I told you before, that's the only time, I can't remember exactly what you're talking about. Oh, like how Songbird and him are different or alike or something. And he's like, she had a bit of luck. And he's like, luck's got nothing to do with it. You wanted different things. And he's like, oh, actually, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's the only time it actually shut him up, I think. But I think for me, that was... I've talked about it loads because I absolutely love that ending. That for me, I hope, is the canonical ending.
Well, that's the thing is that like with RPGs like this, and with some games like with DLCs, the game will say this is the canonical ending.
Yeah, you're not really going to get that decision until the second one.
No, and like it depends on like when the second one's set, and probably with it being based the world and stuff with potentially recurring characters, they could say that is the canonical ending.
Yeah.
But also that then the other one where you have to mercy kill has so much emotional weight that I wouldn't want them to say in stone it's this one, because like either of those two.
I think it'd be really cool if it like read a previous games. I don't know how complex that's going to be again, but reading the previous games game save. I can like if you do episodes of The Walking Dead, the Telltale series.
Yeah,
I mean like, this person's alive. Even seasons, because I think someone pops up in a following. I'm not playing it all the way through yet, but some people pop up in following seasons, and it's another character if you've like killed them or they've died in a previous season.
Well, I haven't played them, but the Mass Effect games do that. Decisions you make in Mass Effect 1 and 2 carry through. Like,
to 3.
Yeah. And even I think, this dumbfounded me as a child. I still to this day don't know whether this was for everyone or just for me, but I finished Assassin's Creed 2 in the vault in like Rome or somewhere, and then you start Brotherhood.
That's when you like leave the vault and you
leave, and then you climb up a tower, but you're wearing like the same armor, the same consumables and everything as the previous game. And
Did you unlock like the master assassin armor?
The black armor in 2 that goes into...
Might have been a coincidence, maybe.
Because I was just like, if they've read my save, that's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. As it goes back to like, was it one of the Metal Gear Solid games where like one of the bad guys is like, oh, I know that you like RPG games because it just reads your memory card.
Yeah.
Like back then you were like, oh my god,
how's he know?
the relationship between V and Johnny.
Yeah.
Across the whole thing, across Phantom Liberty, across the base game.
It's great. Like, I was always trying to befriend him and be on his side whenever I could do. I think the relationship, like, again, being female V, I think that dynamic works really, really well with it being female to him. I think a male to him, some of, like, the back and forth and in-depth ponderous chat and sass wouldn't quite, I don't know, it still would work, and like I'm sure the voice actor would do a good job, but I think it really works with the female voice actress.
Yeah, I think it's incredible as well. And as well, like, you know, depending on the endings you get in the main game, it's sort of outweighing what's best for you and then what's best for... Because you technically, you're towards in the... You're playing as both. So it's sort of like, what you know, who do you root for more? Yeah. And the amount of endings. And then also as well, we've not even touched on it, the... depending on your Phantom Liberty ending, it unlocks a new main game ending as well.
Yeah, true.
Which is probably, again, one of the most polarising, because I played through it. You know, I did a save where I did that, and I was like, I get that. You know, that's a bit, again, bittersweet.
Yeah.
But I'd read like people doing reviews like, oh, the new, you know, like Phantom Liberty is great, but the new main game ending is just like, it's the worst ending, or it's like
it's interesting though, and I'm glad that they've done that.
I think it is. I mean, I think part of me is like, that might be the canonical ending.
Yeah.
But it's basically like, if you know, in the Killing Moon, if you turn over Songbird, Reed's like, cool, we'll help you. Or if you spare her and don't mercy kill her in the Something Damaged, the FIA basically make good on the promise. You're on the balcony on the roof with Johnny, and he's like, I'm gonna give Reed a call on the Hollow. And then that's Johnny's worst ending for me. In terms of Johnny, if you're a Johnny fan, that's his worst ending, because it's basically we cut it out and Johnny dies. Like, no, there's no two ways about it. You are full on self-preservation. So you're on the you're in like the hovercraft as they take you away to, I assume, Langley, and you're having a conversation with Johnny, and it's like, we knew that this was going to happen. It's, you know, it's about saving me. You said that yourself, and he's like, yeah, but not at the cost of my life. Not like, you know, I don't get a choice in this matter. He's literally just like, you know, backseat, and there's nothing he can do about it. It's almost like he's not begging. I think he actually says, like, I'm not begging for my life. I'm too proud to beg for my life, but like, reconsider.
It's just one that I'd never go with, because I'd just, like, with the relationship built up with Johnny, I wouldn't want to.
Like, it was just interesting to play through. I think, I don't think it'd be anything like pick first time out.
Yeah.
But then it's, you know, there's the following gut punch as you wake up. Obviously, Johnny's gone. That's it. No more Johnny. Reed wakes you up, and it's like, oh, actually, you know, the Neuralink worked. It's great. Or neural matrix worked that you pull from in Dogtown.
But the bad news.
Yeah, here's the bad news. It's 2079. It's been 2 years. You've basically just disappeared. So you've got like your connections. So there's a scene where you can like talk to, you know, like romance options. So for me, it was Judy. Judy's like moved to Pasadena and she's married. Panam just doesn't talk to you because she's like, you left me for 2 years. You know, like, she seems a bit needy. I'm not gonna lie.
Just a bit.
Yeah, just a touch.
Me earlier in the game trying to romance like 4 times, and she's like, we're just friends. And I'm like, I get it.
Take your shoes off, and it's just like, I'll take my shoes off. Do you want to cuddle up? Yeah, sweet. You got a kiss. It's like, actually, no. It's like, what the hell was this?
Stop leading me on.
Yeah, I didn't realise that it was. It's based on your voice and obviously your gender as well. The other bad news as well is Reed tells you that it's like, you can have a job at Langley, but you can't use heavy-duty cyberware anymore. You know, all your combat implants kind of thing. You can basically run basic processors like your optics and stuff. But other than that, like, anything more than that will kill you, kind of thing. And you literally just sat there like, what the hell? Because I think it's such a good ending, because you spend the entire game, you know, from the off. Even when, you know, you're knocking about with Jackie, however you meet Jackie, depending on your starting point.
Yeah.
The whole thing is, want to be a legend in Night City. I'm going to be, you know, like Dexter Soren says it, like, go out old, smelling a piss, or blaze of glory kind of thing. All that's gone. Like, it's not a life you can return to. So, like, yes, you survive, but at the expense of everything you've ever wanted. Yeah. Which I think is where it's the bittersweet comes in. I think Reed even offers you a job. He's like, we'll cover you. Langley's got you. Like, we've got you back. You helped us. We'll sort you out. And you're almost like, oh, what the hell? And, you know, you ring Victor. Victor's like, I'll sort you out. You know, come back to Night City. I'll look you over. And you go back and everything's changed, because in this ending, I think Arasaka, they either get like, something bad happens with Arasaka, I can't remember what it is, but it's completely nothing to do with you, because you've been off for 2 years, like at Langley. Yeah. But Arasaka's like dropped out of Night City, and then it's all Militech now. Vector's sold out, he works for Zeta Tech, Misty Shop's no more, kind of thing. And there's a real power shift, because I think you know, he's working on you, and he's like, actually, there's nothing I can do for you. I'm so sorry. Yeah. And like a merc comes in, and he's like, you get off the table. Like, I need help, Vic. And it's like, like, it's like a role reversal, because you do that. I think you almost do that previously, like in a Johnny mission kind of thing. And then, you know, you meet Misty, and Misty sort of almost helps you make peace. You get mugged by like a 2-bit like criminal who you'd have no qualms of just like absolutely obliterating previously, and it's like
it's just the contrast from going to being a legend to being like NPC.
Another face in the crowd, which is I think I liked polarizing definitely, but I loved that ending. I thought that was like really good.
I'm definitely gonna have to check it out on YouTube because it does sound cool.
Do it. We've not even touched on the whole how much more Cyberpunk Edgerunners brings to the. We're gonna have to do that in a separate episode.
So that is something that we'll be visiting at some point.
Basically, Edgerunners is a beast on its own, isn't it?
When I've had the chance to actually watch through it, so at some point in the next 2-3 episodes. I'll watch through Edgerunners sort of over the Christmas period, and then we'll address that because I'm curious to hear how that ties into it. Yeah,
like a little bit deeper on sort of like lore and almost like mechanics in the game. I think as well. But
I'm so excited. So that wraps up this episode. Thanks again for joining.
Not a problem. I'll see you next time.
Yes, see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Home Screen Podcast. If you've enjoyed it, please check us out on social media. At the time of recording, we've just done the Spotify Wrapped. For the first time, this podcast had a Wrapped. So thanks everyone for listening to this podcast. It's been really cool to see sort of the support grow over the year. A few people, we've actually been their top podcast of the year, so appreciate that. So yeah, if you haven't already, really appreciate if you could give the podcast a rating. Check us out on social media and stay tuned for the next few episodes. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.